Duke lived apart from his children for 7 months every year to be closer to his hunting ground. Isabella would send short notes to him detailing the sleeping habits and heating of the two infants, and it was between November and April that Philip lived with his younger children, which Isabella stayed with her Aya. Now, let's talk briefly about Isabella's education real quick. In the summer of 1749, her parents got Pierre Thoreau to tutor her in history, literature, and French. In 1750, howdy, 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 howdy. Happy Labor Day weekend, everyone. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're not making any drunk decisions. Um, I hope if you are drinking, please do not drink and drive. Please don't. It's dangerous and you can hurt someone and you can hurt yourself. So you matter. This is Down the Rabbit Hole where we talk about many topics such as people in history, random events, weird history, urban legends, and stuff like that. If you're new here, hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe. Help a girl out. This is also opening game day, opening game weekend, so go Tigers. Today we're going to be talking about a princess from history. And if you're probably guessing, Princess Isabella of Parma. Now, who is this princess? Why are we talking about her? Why am I wasting your time talking about her? Well, if you're a history nut like me, you probably want to know more about her, right? Okay. With that being said, this is going to be a bit of a long episode, so why don't we jump right into it? Right. Um, so is it Princess Isabella of Parma was born Inf- Infanta Isabel Maria Luisa Antoinette Antonetta of Spain on December 31st, 1741 in Madrid. She was the first child of infant Philip of Spain and his wife Louise Elizabeth of France. Now her parents were first cousins once removed with an age difference of 7 years. Her mom was 12, and her dad was just 19 when they got married. Now, that's really messed up compared to like it was legal back then. That's the thing. And there's some states in the US where like they still don't have a law on child marriages, and that's the sad part right there. Michigan's one of those states and everything. Um but um as the firstborn daughter of Louis the 15th of France, um Madame Infant is considered beneath her to marry anyone who is not a monarch or heir apparent. So, how did Philip manage to become the lucky one? He was only a third son of Philip the Fifth of Spain, and everything. And Madame Infant was a very ambitious, strong willed, which was the complete opposite of her husband. She soon took on a leading role in the marriage, working through her French and Spanish contracts to secure a higher position for themselves with her mother in law, Elizabeth Fornes, who was the de facto ruler of Spain and who threatened in her influence
Now,
over
she
her
was
son,
only
but they
14
worked
when she
together
gave
to
birth to
promote Philip's
Isabella,
career.
and this was after a difficult labor which lasted for 2 days. Ugh. I'm an aunt, and I can only imagine like 2 days. Oh my gosh. Ugh. Now, 2 months later, Philip left to go fight in the War of the Austrian Succession, and he did not see his family until Isabella was 8. Her mom showed her little affection and found her to be a burden. Imagine being that as a child. I feel for Isabella on that one actually. Now, for the first 7 years of her life, Isabella was raised in the Madrid court of her paternal grandparents. Her grandma showed her love and interest in her development, and she would report to her well-being and behavior to her absent son. Now, based on the letters, her mom never showed her any warmth, was impatient with her, and was impatient to her absent son. She was impatient to her, especially when Isabella threw tantrums and chastised her so severely that the queen called it, excuse me, military drill. And now her mom, Isabella. found Isabella to be a stubborn and unbearable, and she was entrusted to a governess, and the governess retained a strong sense of etiquette and hierarchy to her previous position as the Dame d'Honneur to Barbara of Portugal. Now, she developed a close bond with her and inspired, and this also provoked some jealousy in her mom. Now, imagine that being jealous of the person who's taking care of your child who you resent, right? Makes no sense whatsoever. But this was the norm back then, and Isabella's education was structured around the contemporary ideals for a princess, and corporal punishment was ordered by her dad, and of course, her mom endorsed it. Of course, so why not abuse your child, right? Now, there's an unpublished autobiography, and it was described that she was energetic and mischievous, and she always loved loud and breaking furniture and ornaments. She also enjoyed chasing butterflies, horse riding, performing stunts with a rope, and she also liked to write, sing, and draw. Now, in an attempt to better her behavior, her governess forbade her from these activities. And in 1746, a French envoy would compliment her dignity, and she said that she knew who she was, with whom she belongs at the age of 4. Now, it is important to know that he remarked on her coldness that her mom had toward Isabella, and she grew up to be only child until the age of 10, with no one to play with, and was under a very strict and controlling childhood. Now, she would go to visit Versailles and from January 6th to October 7th in 1741. Now, and Isabella while she lived there, she was visiting her maternal family on the way back to Parma, and at this time, she was the only grandchild of Louis XV and Queen Marie Les. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that last name. But anyway, it was there that she was surrounded by more attention than she had previously received. And needless to say, the luxury and cheerfulness of the French court was a complete shock. Think about it, especially since she was not accustomed to all of this. And it was a more rigid of a Spanish court, and around the age of 8, she was allowed to participate, and that she did not seem to enjoy these performances and was very timid at first. And at this time, she was more comfortable speaking Spanish than French. And with time, she would start to enjoy her stay, and she would enjoy accompanying her grandma, Queen Marie, to these events. And she was delighted by being treated as a French royal princess. Eventually, her primary language would become French. I took French in high school and I barely remember any of it, trust me. Um, but following the 1748 Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, her father would become Duke of Parma, and this title was formerly Isabella's mom's family, and she would arrive to with her mom November 20th, 1749. And at this time, though, it's important to note that Parma was impoverished and the palace was in ruins. Whereas Isabella thought that highly of the Spaniards and French, she considered the Italians to be ignorant of the art of thinking. And they wanted to leave the country immediately. And mom's resented the loss of her status and relative poverty, wanted to leave the country immediately. She focused on arranging marriages for her children. Um, she would visit Versailles twice to negotiate a match for Isabella, one in August 1752 and October 1753, then in the summer of 1757 when she died. Now, um, she left her husband and her children in Parma. Now, well, she was doing these negotiations. Now, her parents would go on to have two more children, Ferdinand, who was born January 20th, and Louisa, who was born December 9th. It was these children that her mom would show more affection to, and Isabella did not appear to be jealous and enjoyed having the company. And imagine, like, she probably just like, okay, my mom is not going to let me the same as these kids. And she probably just accepted it. And during her mom's absence, she would report on the well-being of her dad and maternal grandma. And the Duke lived apart from his children for 7 months every year to be closer to his hunting ground. Isabella would send short notes to him detailing the sleeping habits and heating of the two infants, and it was between November and April that Philip lived with his younger children, Isabella stayed with her Aya. Now, let's talk briefly about Isabella's education real quick. In the summer of 1749, her parents got Pierre Sirot to tutor her in history, literature, and French. In 1754, at the request of the Madrid court, he was replaced by a French Jesuit by the name of Thomas Fumerin, and from Sarah's departure in April 1754, no educator was assigned to Isabella, but to her brother. In 1757 and 58, respectively, a governor and tutor were hired for him. Isabella was instructed by her confessors in the lives of the saints that she continued to practice drawing, painting, and music with her Aya. Now, let's talk about her marriage to one of the probably the most well-known archdukes in all of history, honestly. And that person will be Archduke Joseph. And why does that name sound familiar? Do you remember the name Maria Theresa? Well, Maria Theresa followed a marriage policy intending to strengthen the relationship between the Bourbon and the Habsburg, and she shifted her alliance to join Austria against the Britain and Prussia in the diplomatic revolution. Now, Joseph was the eldest son, and of course, he was the heir to the throne, and he was unenthusiastic about marriage because of his low opinion of women and relied on his advice from his mom choosing a bride. Now his betrothal to Isabella was broken off. Isabella's cousin was broken off because he used the excuse he was falling in love with Isabella. In reality, it was a political decision Maria Theresa made. Now, on the bright side, negotiations were led by Madame Infant, and the contract was finalized in the summer of 1759. Shortly after the age of 32, Isabella's mom would die of smallpox, which devastated her daughter and also had her thinking that she was going to die young. And after her betrothal, the parties decided that to wait so long till a couple could mature. And the death of Elizabeth further delayed the plans, and Isabella started to learn German. She was so anxious to please her future mill. It also appears that she prepared methodically for her future, paying attention to the political situation of the Habsburg monarchy in the following the ongoing War of Prussia. To please her family, she was already ready to pretend and manipulate. Joseph would write to his friends that he would try to win his bride respect and trust. He considered it impossible for himself to be agreeable and to pose as a lover. Sounds like he was a narcissistic jerk who just thought he was better than everyone. But considering when you're the heir to the throne, you have a lot of pressure against you, and having your mom as Maria Theresa doesn't really help with the whole narcissism, does it? Now, Maria was actually an now Joseph was very actually an attentive husband, even though he did not fully return to feelings. Isabella did not fully return to feelings. Now, as the Archduchess, it was considered her duty to produce an heir as quickly as possible. With that, she became pregnant in late 1761, and her pregnancy and childbirth did cause her anxiety. She was relieved that she did not disappoint her family, and she was worried that she would be unable to handle the pain of labor. So, on March 20th, 1762, she would give birth to her daughter, Archduchess Maria Theresa. Nobody knows how she felt about childbirth. So, in August 1762 and January 1761, she would miscarry, and the Empress would advise Joseph to wait 6 months for Isabella to recover. And she even found the Empress as a material figure, and it appears that she had hidden beliefs that and was submissive to her husband and Mill. So what was her relation? So what was the relationship with the Archduchess Maria Christina? As we all know, Isabella and Maria Christina have this like weird LGBT love affair that she is now known for. Um, and this is probably what Isabella of Parma is most known for. And her sister-in-law was Isabella's best friend and only confidant, and Marie was the third surviving child of the imperial couple. Less than 5 months younger than Isabella and was the favorite of the Empress. She was intelligent, artistically inclined, and the two quickly developed a close relationship. Now,
Okay, you
despite
may
living in the
notice
same
that
palace, they
we are in a new change of
exchanged
background. We have moved
letters
to my
and small
bedroom. I'm
notes
sitting on my bed
daily,
currently because I just
which
don't want to sit at my desk right
200 of the
now. And I
correspondence
get those periods. You know what I'm talking about?
by Isabella
But anyway,
survived.
let's jump back into this episode, shall we? It seems that Isabella soon began became romantically and perhaps also most sexually attracted to Murray. And the letters feelings that developed gradually and remained more reserved. Now, she was recovering from her love from Louis. Now, Marie was recovering from her love for Louis Eugene Wittenberg after their relationship had been ended by Maria Theresa and considered him inferior to the Archduchess. And soon after Isabella's arrival in October or November 1760 that year, she started to playfully court Marie, writing that the love was a cruel god, tormented her, and that death would be surely sweet, except for not being able to love Marie anymore. In the beginning of their relationship, she addressed Marie formally and called her my lady, my dear sister. But soon afterwards, started calling her my dear angel, my precious treasure, or my consolation. And Marie's regular nicknames were Mon Haute, um, and which was a Viennese slang for washcloth, which was an object that was of with erratic connotations. I don't know how to react to that. Like, okay, but for example, the two of them traced them. Now, Isabella regularly portrayed the two of them as a heterosexual couple. For example, Marie was Eurydice and Isabella Orpheus, or using the names of couples from contemporary comedies, and she called himself a lover and everything. Now the two women agreed to meet in hidden places, and Isabella wrote short notes to Marie during mass, and they gifted each of the contemporary toilets. And Isabella commented that she hoped Marie would think of her each time and that she used it. Okay, hang on. Mm. Now, if the weather prevented Joseph from going on a hunt, the sisters-in-law canceled their meetings and hurried disappointed notes. They were worried to keep their they were worried to keep their relationship a secret. In March 1761, Isabella reminded Marie of her given word to never talk about something because there is nothing in the world as shameful as going against nature. Marie seems to have been more reserved than Isabella as well, and but she did return her feelings, and they share a perception of homosexuality as sinful led to feelings of guilt. Isabella also felt the shame of not reciprocating the love of her husband, failing to fulfill her duty as a wife, and this worsened her depression and convinced her that only solution was her death. And she wrote to Maria that the Almighty knows how gladly I would part in my life with grievance inflicted upon him daily. After Marie's death, a miniature of Isabella and her daughter was found in a prayer book. On its back, she had written to the date and the cause of Isabella's death, calling her my best and truest friend who lived as an angel and died as an angel. Now, before her death, Isabella told her mother-in-law that not everything was viewable for Joseph among her papers. The Empress asked Countess Arity Isabella's um to, to basically burn the writings. It is unknown why this did not happen. And the letters Isabella had written basically would remain among Marie's papers, and her husband, Albert Casimir, understood as proof as an exceptional friendship between his wife and unparalleled princess. And as of 2024, the letters are in the National Archives of Hungary as well. Um, So, what about the appraisal of the relationship? Well, a family seated around the table playing cards. There was so while early historians has dismissed the language of the letters as an fashionable expression of the friendship, it later became considered that the two had a romantic, possibly sexual affair with each other and everything.
Yeah. Now, what about the death and aftermath? Well, the imperial court spent plenty of summers. In 1763, it was recorded that Isabella did not want to move back to Hofburg, and she was spent about 6 months pregnant and believed that she might have been carrying twins. Smallpox were reported around Vienna, and on November 18th, 4 days just after her arrival in Vienna, Isabella developed a fever and soon was diagnosed with smallpox. And the empress, who had been nursing her, was persuaded to leave her in a room and everything. Following the birth, Isabella was rarely conscious and displayed um, a courage bordering on indifference at death. And on November 26th, the doctors would inform Joseph that Isabella was agonizing and she died the next day. So, what about the impact of Joseph and Maria Christina? Well, Joseph was devastated by her death and never fully recovered. And on his insistence, he remarried. On his mom's insistence, he remarried Maria Josepha of Bavaria, who physically repulsed him and he mistreated despite his attempts to accommodate her. She would die of smallpox 2 years into their marriage. He adored his only child, Maria Theresa, who died of pleurisy in 1770 at the age of 7. While the love he felt for his wife helped develop a more positive attribute, after her death, he became even more sarcastic, easily irritable, and aggressive than before their marriage. So, what about now? Is also some things to note is that while her relationship with Maria Christina has been brought into question, there was also some mental health problems that came into play, like she was considered melancholic, which was at the time, depression and stuff like that, that wasn't even a thing, so we gotta remember that. She has sudden periods of being unable to move and just sitting in one place. Um, it's probably what would be bipolar, and everything. Burdened by her marriage, difficulties getting pregnant, and she later admitted that she had great temptation to commit suicide if it was not forbidden by the church and everything. Now, her writings from her marriage would analyze her life and the world around her and everything. Now, reflections on her education was Isabella's rejection of the contemporary upbringing and upper class children of the convert, condemnation of her own parents, and teachers was hard as well and everything. But that is it. Join me next time as we're either talking about Queen Charlotte or Princess Victoria. Queen Victoria. Can't remember which one I'm doing first. I want to say it's Queen Victoria though, so please join me as we talk about it.